American Christian or Christian American. I'm Sean Legacy and I'm your host. If you haven't yet subscribed, please push that subscribe button and join the family as the effort to grow this channel. And if you like the video, please press the like button. So today we're going to talk about Lucille Times. So many different characters in the civil rights movement have not been told about. Why? Well, remember, our society tries to oppress anything about the civil rights. Now, Rosa Parks stands out about the Montgomery bus boycott, but Lucille Times was also involved. In fact, she was involved before Rosa Parks did her famous refusal to give up her seat experience, and before the major blowout of the Montgomery boycott. Remember, this type of boycott wouldn't work in the United States today. We have to choose things that work with the situations that exist. And at this time, public transit didn't exist. Transit, buses, whatever, was all private. And so in Montgomery, Alabama, you had a private company that is trying to make a profit. Well, the boycott disrupted that profit and hurt the bus company. Now, today, transit is public, so lower ridership might mean just cutting service. So it wouldn't work today, but right then it was just the right thing to change things. Let's talk about another person besides Rosa Parks who was a catalyst in change, Lucille Times. I've got 2 videos for you and then we'll conclude.
This black woman didn't just refuse to give up a seat. She got out of her car and fought the bus driver in the middle of the street. On June 15, 1955, 6 months before Rosa Parks would make history, Lucille Times was driving her 1951 Buick through the streets of Montgomery, Alabama. She wasn't even on a bus, but the bus system still found her. A driver named James Blake tried to run her off the road, not once, but 3 times. When they both stopped, Blake didn't offer an apology. He stepped off his bus and unleashed a wave of racial slurs. But Lucille Times wasn't looking for a polite protest. She stepped out of her car and met him head-on. They came to blows right there on the pavement. During the struggle, Lucille did what she had to do to protect herself. She bit him. This wasn't a peaceful demonstration. This was a fight for her life and her dignity. And here is the unfiltered twist. The man she fought, James Blake, is the exact same driver who would have Rosa Parks arrested 6 months later. That night, Lucille didn't just go home and cry. She called E.D. Nixon, the head of the local NAACP. Nix, who was a brilliant strategist, told her what leaders often tell impatient people. Wait, we need the right moment, we need to organize. Lucille's response? I'm starting a boycott tomorrow. And she did. The very next day, Lucille and her husband Charlie started using their own car to pick up black neighbors. They told everyone they knew, don't ride the buses. If you need a ride, call the Times Cafe. For 6 months, Lucille ran a one-woman transportation system. She funded the gas, she did the driving, and she turned her business into a hub for resistance. When the citywide Montgomery bus boycott finally began in December 1955, Lucille wasn't a new volunteer. She was a seasoned veteran who had already been winning the war for half a year. She donated her car to the Montgomery Improvement Association and kept driving until the system broke. So here's the question we have to ask. Why does history prefer the story of the woman who sat down over the woman who stood up and fought? Is it because Lucille's brand of resistance, physical, immediate, and unauthorized, is too dangerous for a textbook? Lucille Times lived to be 100 years old, passing away in 2021. She lived long enough to see her name finally added to the history books, but she never cared about the fame. She cared about the fight. I want to hear from you in the comments. Who inspires you more? The protester who waits for the committee or the one who starts the movement from their own driver's seat the next morning? Comment fighter to honor the legend of Lucille Times. Share this video with someone who thinks the boycott started with a single bus seat. We don't just tell the past. We show you the warriors they tried to edit out.
Here we see an article on Lucille Times. who, like we in the other video, she was a precursor to Rosa Parks. She actually started providing bus boycott rides for people to boycott the buses before Rosa Parks started the bigger movement. But Rosa Parks wasn't the first. And Lucille Times, who was practically run over by a bus driver, and they got into exchange. He called her all kinds of racial names and called her a black SOB, to which she responded he was a white SOB. Physical altercation between Times and the bus driver, and she bit his arm. Time was arrested by the police officers who reprimanded her by striking her with a flashlight. Times, who was let off with a warning, was told by the police officers that things could have been worse had she been a man. Her head would have been basically beat her to her face, or her head was like jelly. So they decided, and it goes on in the article, to decide that they would do the. They contacted the NAACP, who told her to sit quiet, basically, but she didn't. She got up there and she started doing protests. Now, she continued to be a supporter of the civil rights movement all her life. And, of course, we see here she died. She died around 100 years old. I'm trying to see where I saw that. But you can look her up, Lucille Times, and talks about, you can see more about her. So looking at those two videos, we see a woman who really had a lot of fire in her belly. She was a strong person. She fought back. She actually fought this white bus driver. And today we would think maybe nothing of it to a point. But you think about the times, how African Americans were treated, beaten, lynched, all these other things at times, and how brave she was to stand up. And she wasn't going to back down. So she was arrested by the police. She was hit in the head with a flashlight. She was let off with a warning, but told that if she had been a man, they would have beat her head till it was like jelly. And they were proud of that. They were absolutely proud of that's what they would do. To keep somebody in line, to keep somebody down. Well, this made her back down, right? No. She stood up with her husband. They had a car. He helped gather up get gas donations, and she shuttled people around, getting as many people as she could not to ride the Montgomery buses. Now, her boycott alone may not have been enough. But Lucille Times was one that started this thing. She started it, and Rosa Parks was the kickoff to the full boycott, where everybody would stop riding the Montgomery buses. She had an impact, but it needed to go bigger. But think about her bravery, especially when there wasn't other people participating, where the NAACP said to wait. So she didn't have as much support at the time. She is a woman who deserves credit, and she is a woman who deserves to have her story told. I would encourage you to look up more on Lucille Times. And I would ask you to ask yourself, how brave are you? Would you stand up in light of those circumstances? Would you at least stand up in the light of today's circumstances? It's not easy. It's frightening. But she stood up for what she knew was right and her dignity. And we need to stand up for the dignity of all people, whether you're African American, Native American, Latino, or you're Caucasian like me. We need to all stand up for dignity for all people. We need to stand up and rebel against authoritarianism, against racism, against white supremacy. Right now, in the heat of the Trump administration, just how evil this man has been. And yet, you got people who say they're Christians who continue to praise this man and make excuses for this man. We need to stand up and make our voice heard. Especially those who are Christians. Stand up saying that we believe in God, we believe in Christianity, but we don't stand with this kind of abuse, this kind of mistreatment of people. Lucille Times should be a hero to every decent human being, not just to African Americans, but to every decent human being, for someone who stands up for what's right. Lucille Times is becoming one of my heroes, amongst so many others, Medgar Evers and so many others. Bob Zellner, who is a Caucasian man who stood up for civil rights. I'm particularly encouraged by him because he stood up in an awful time with a grandfather who was a member of the Ku Klux Klan, and he didn't have to. He could go on and live his quote-unquote white life and not be involved. But he made a choice to become a civil rights activist, made a choice to stand with people who needed his support, but also he needed them. He needed them so he could become a better man. So many people have stood up against these things, but the mission has not stopped because this evil in this country has not stopped. These people continue to spew out lies and hatred, and if we just sit there and take it, that's what they're going to continue to do. They're going to use political power to take away things unless we fight back, unless we stand up for things. But what can I do? I'm only one person. I don't vote. It's just, it doesn't matter. Yes, it does. Our system may have corruption in it, but it's still, if people come out in droves and vote, even with that corruption, we can change things. We do have power. But part of what people want you to believe is that you don't have power. They want you to stay home. We need to vote and make our voices heard. If you won't do anything else, you need to at least vote. But please make an educated vote. Understand what the situations are. If I can help you be educated, fine, but don't stop with me. Go on to other people. Talk to other people. Learn from other people. And be a human being, not a white human being, not just a black human being, not just a Native American human being. Not that any of those things, you should look down upon those things, although I don't believe in calling myself white anymore because I believe the term white is part of a social construct in order to create division. But I'm Caucasian. I'm a descendant from Europe, but before that, I was a descendant from the original people who were dark-skinned. Throughout the generations, people changed. Well, see, I still go back to those first people who didn't look like this. They looked darker. I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for those people in the world. Does it make me less of a person? No, it does not. But it certainly doesn't make me a superior person. Lucille Times is an example for us. Do we have to wait until things are as desperate as it was in those times before we act? Or can we act now and turn things back the way they should be going? They were never completely there. We still suffered from constant racism in this country. We still suffer from ignorant people who chose hatred over love, who twisted the Bible out of shape to misuse it and to use it as an instrument of hate when it was not an instrument of hate, it was an instrument of love. What will you do? Today's message is simple. Lucille Times is sending a letter to you. What will you do? I know what I'm going to do. Continue to do what I'm doing in this podcast and anything else I can, and talk to anybody who will listen. Some people will never change, but there are people who will. Please join the fight. Until the next time on American Christian or Christian American.